Hey everybody, it's Fox with FoxeoGames, and this is a Fox First Scent of Shadow Warrior 2. This is the PC version. It's also available on the Xbox One and PlayStation 4. It's the sequel to Shadow Warrior, which was itself a sort of reboot remake of the original Shadow Warrior, which came out quite a while ago. Shadow Warrior is similar to some of the other games that came out in the 90s. It's a sort of in-your-face, silly, comedic first-person shooter that attempts to take a theme and really play on it. In this case, it's a sort of Asian theme. Now, the main character is known as Wang, which, anyway, we know what that's about. However, he does seem to also be referenced in a way that would make you think he might also be Japanese, but his name is clearly not Japanese in any way, shape, or form. So there's this awkward sort of blending of different Asian cultures in a way that doesn't really make sense, but I think that's part of the comedic value. They're not attempting to be realistic in any way. Here's some graphic settings for the game. It's actually pretty darn good. It doesn't have everything you would hope for. It appears that the only anti-aliasing settings are temporal anti-aliasing, unfortunately. Temporal anti-aliasing can be really, really good, especially for performance versus quality. Much better than some of the other solutions like MSAA and other things that can really kill your frame rate, but unfortunately I do still see some jaggies in the game. You can rebind all of the buttons, which is nice. You can invert the mouse controls if you're a nutcase that likes to turn everything upside down for some strange reason. There's multiplayer, which I didn't get a chance to play with yet. I'm actually busy. I have a life, unfortunately. No, that's not unfortunately. Shadow Warrior 2 is a really fun and interesting first-person shooter in the sense that it sort of breaks the mold a bit, and that you get to play around with melee weapons as well as ranged weapons, and both of them work just great. In fact, I usually prefer the melee option. You have a katana, and that thing is awesome. You get a bunch of moves to go with it. When the game first starts up, I can't show much of it for copyright reasons, but it plays "You've Got the Power," the 80s song that was made quite infamous from the Transformers cartoon movie. A great song to fit this game for sure. You crash your vehicle down in this cavern here, and valley, and for some reason the vehicle's not damaged at all, but that's okay. We're going to change the mouse sensitivity just a bit, thank goodness you can, and you can turn mouse smoothing on or off, thank goodness. Many games require you to go into settings like config files to turn mouse smoothing off. You'll notice that if you look in the upper left corner, I am getting a very, very, very solid frame rate. We're pretty much at the 130s to 140s up to 144, which is the max that my computer will run at with G-Sync enabled and a 144 Hz monitor. Right now, I'm just sort of testing to see if there's any vertical sync issues in terms of screen tearing and all that jazz. There wasn't, thank goodness. And let's get right into some combat. You'll notice that the great performance actually carries over into the combat as well, even when there are smoke and fog effects and water and projectiles and all the sort of stuff that you would normally, particles, all that jazz. It doesn't seem to phase it much, which kind of shocks me, because usually you see a game vary its frame rate quite a lot, particularly FPS games when you're going from no action to lots of action. But take a look, guys. It's a rock solid 143, which I imagine is pretty much a 144. It may just be an issue with how it monitors the frame rate. Now you'll notice that I am using the sort of submachine gun weapon. There's also the katana, as I mentioned, the shotgun, handgun. I haven't gotten anywhere close to all the weapons yet. If you played Shadow Warrior, this is very similar in many ways, except they've really expanded on it. There are some really cool like reload animations like you're seeing right there. It's much easier to see items. They have those little Borderlands-esque sort of beams of light coming up from the ground. And there's also a lot more in the agility department. What I mean by that is you can double jump, and then you can dash. I don't think you can run, but you dash, and you can double jump and then dash while in mid-air to gain some additional distance. You can also climb, although you can't climb just anything, but if you jump up towards a ledge, as you'll see here, you will climb up onto it, and there are some walls which you can actually climb straight up. There are ladders as well. A lot of FPS games do avoid that kind of verticality because they're just scared to have the animations of the player climbing a ladder. For example, the new Fallout series. But this one's definitely got it going on when it comes to the agility department. So if you go back to the original Shadow Warrior, well, not the original, I mean the remake Shadow Warrior, the last Shadow Warrior game to come out, it'll feel a bit more stiff and unnatural. The movement isn't as fluid and as dynamic as it is here. So that's a really cool thing. As I mentioned, that temporal anti-aliasing is a bit lackluster. You do still see some jaggies here and there. If you're moving around and fighting and engaged in combat, you won't notice. But for example, when you go into some of the non-combat areas, you definitely will see it, like on paintings, on the walls, on the edge of the painting and whatnot. Here are a couple special moves I want to show you guys. That's the spinny move that I love so much, which was also in the first game. And the moves are actually easier to do this time around. Instead of double tapping right on the mouse button, instead you'll just tap right in a mouse button. So you would think that that wouldn't make a big difference, but it did. I noticed that double tapping the keys didn't always work for me. Now, there's a lot more in terms of the customization. Not only can you upgrade the weapons that you have, but you get lots of little upgrades that drop from enemies. This is more of a Borderlands-esque type of system here, where you get lots of different ways to sort of spec out the weapons. It's not that you get a billion different weapons, but you get little gems and things to slot into them. And for example, they could have a lightning effect or do additional damage or any number of little effects. I haven't had a chance to go all into it. That's why this is a Fox first scent, but I do want to mention the humor. The humor was present in the game from the very beginning, even the original back in the 90s. But this time around, it does feel a bit tired. It feels a bit worn out. Wang is constantly making little quips, and oftentimes it just sounds immature. Now, the game does point that out, and characters in the game will actually accuse him of being immature, and he is. But it does get old really quickly, I will say that. Some of his one-liners are funny, but like I said, a lot of them just sort of feel forced and unnecessary, and I almost think the game would be better off without a lot of that. It does have a borderless full screen mode, thank goodness. That's something I'm noticing a lot more in games nowadays, and that's awesome, especially for those of us with multiple monitors. And all I've got to say is so far I really like it. I think I'm going to play through it probably till the end. Yeah, there's no friendly fire in here. You can't attack the good guys or the guys that are on your side. And the graphics look awesome, performance is awesome, so look forward to my review of Shadow Warrior 2 on Fox with FoxeoGames, and I will see you guys next time.